Have you ever wished you could manifest what you want, like instantly? Boom, like a magic trick, only for real, like this. In this video, there won't be any magic tricks, but I will show you a very simple two-step process that will awaken your power to manifest everything you need to get everything you want. It'll make more sense when I show you. Stay tuned. Look, the first thing that happens when you want something is, well, you notice you want something. I mean, duh. Suppose you want something to eat. No problem. You know exactly where the fridge is or how far away the nearest burger bar is, right? In other words, you recognize the feeling of hunger and you know exactly what to do about it. But suppose you want not food, but let's say love or money or to live in a bigger house. Now you've got a feeling of wanting something, but you don't know how to satisfy it. If it was as easy as getting a burger or a snack from the fridge, you just go and do it, right? You wouldn't be posting affirmations all over the house, reading, "I have a burger in my tummy," now would you? You wouldn't be visualizing burgers. Oh, okay, maybe you would. But you get my point. When you know how to get something, you don't expect the law of attraction to be a part of how you get it. It's only when you don't know how to get something that we resort to techniques like visualization and so on. But supposing you did know, supposing you were as chilled with the feeling of desiring something you don't know how to get as you are with the feeling of being peckish. Peckish, fridge, or burger bar, whatever. Big impossible desire you want to manifest? See, it's that little word how that trips us up. We don't know how we're going to get the money, find the love, or get the big mansion, whatever it is you want. So here's where instant manifestation comes into its own. Because the how will show up when, drum roll please, you stop trying to make it happen. That's because the universe knows a bazillion ways, well, an infinite number of ways actually, and you can't think of any. That's why you want help from the law of attraction, right? Which means when you stop poking your nose in and trying to figure out how to get the girl, the guy, the money, the job, the house, whatever it is, and let the universe do its job, it just will. Instantly. It's like it lays a trail of breadcrumbs, and all you have to do is follow them, even if you don't know why and can't see where they're leading. A bit like your car's sat-nav system. You tell it where you want to go, and even if you've never been there before, as long as you keep driving, the gadget will faithfully guide you to the exact place. You only have two jobs. Keep driving and trust it. So let's translate all of this into instant manifesting. Here are the steps. First, get really clear in your mind about what the result looks like. I said looks like, but you don't have to make pictures. The universe doesn't care if you can visualize or not. Seriously, get over that. It's exactly the same when you're hungry. First, you decide what you want, burger or salad. You understand the signal your body's sending you. It's hunger. Then you decide how to deal with it. You may or may not make pictures in your mind. That varies from person to person. But once you know what you want, you set about getting a burger or fixing a salad or whatever. The difference here is you don't know how to get what you want, but the universe does. Okay? So, when you get a strong desire for something, which is more of an emotional sensation than a physical one, instead of going to the nearest burger bar, you're going to do something different. But that's all. It doesn't mean your life is over if you can't fix this thing. You don't have to get depressed or desperate. Somehow, we just forgot to trust the universe. And to do that, you'd better know how to tune into it. We're all born being able to do that, so don't worry. This isn't difficult at all. Let's suppose you want a bigger house because, I don't know, you're getting married to someone and they have 3 kids and a dog. You don't have to know the exact house. You don't need to know how you'll be able to afford the mortgage. You don't need to know any of that. But you do know that the result is that you all live happily together in a place that feels like home, where the kids can easily get to school, and there's plenty of lovely places to walk the dog. That's what I mean by get clear about the result. That's the internal sat-nav, or GPS if you prefer, set. Now you have to drive. Again, if it was a burger, you might actually drive to a burger joint. You can plan the whole thing from start to finish, and you know you'll end up with a burger in probably less than half an hour. But here you are with no idea how to get that house. So what you have to do is listen. Accept that you don't know, but allow yourself to believe that the universe does. In fact, it doesn't just know a way, it has infinite possibilities at its disposal. So whenever you find your mind spinning with frustration and thoughts of, oh, this will never work, just mentally put your finger to your lips and go, shh. Just watch those thoughts with all their negativity and messages of impossibility. Watch, but ignore. Like you'd ignore a boring drama on the TV. Just let it become the background. There's no trying here, no effort. If the thoughts come back, and they will, turn the volume down again. Imagine you have a remote control like you have for your TV. Push the mute button. Fade the colours. Turn them to black and white or even shades of faint grey if they appear as pictures. And if that doesn't work, because some days they're just really insistent, ignore them in the same way you'd ignore a slight headache or a stubbed toe. You go about your business and eventually the pain just fades away. You'll get frustration thoughts too, like, yeah, but when will I get the house? You don't know, so get comfortable with that. That's step 1, setting the sat-nav. Now, step 2 is going to happen at the same time, but I have to say it like it's one after the other. You see, what will happen as you learn to quieten your mind is that new thoughts and ideas will pop into your head. They might have nothing to do with getting the house, but that doesn't matter. These are the breadcrumbs. And this is the driving part. This is how you follow them. Suppose it occurs to you that old Mrs. Jones, who lives 3 doors down, might not have anyone to feed her cat while she has her tests in hospital next week. It occurs to you to ask her. I love the expression, it occurs to you, or in my case, it occurred to me. I don't know where those thoughts or ideas come from. Now, in the old days, before I knew about any of this stuff, I'd have dismissed thoughts like those. Oh, no, I don't really know her. She's probably got a family member who'll look after the cat. Besides, it's none of my business. All that chatter. But now I catch it, which is what you must do too. And I act on them. What possible harm can it do to ask Mrs. Jones? So pop round or put a note through her door. It might not be Mrs. Jones and her cat that occurs to you. Once, in my case, when I thought I was going to lose my home because I had no way to pay my mortgage after my first marriage broke down, an ex-neighbour I hardly knew invited me for a beer on a rainy November night. It was completely out of the blue, random event. We went to a pub, which was empty. 5 minutes later, a guy I'd never seen before walked in and recognised my companion. They'd been at school together and hadn't seen each other for about 15 years. That guy turned out to be the boyfriend of a barmaid who was working there that night, and the four of us ended up in a huddle chatting in this otherwise empty bar. The barmaid mentioned that she wasn't intending to be a barmaid forever. It was just a stopgap job while she was waiting for an interview at a very specialist psychiatric facility. My companion had never heard of it, but I happened to manage another unit in the exact same specialty, so I knew what it was. She then wanted to pick my brains to get tips for her interview. I obliged by suggesting she could come over to my house the next evening, which she did. Now, my house was half empty because my ex-wife had taken a lot of the furniture, but it did have a good heating system. When the barmaid came round to my place, she commented on how nice and warm the house was and mentioned that her lodgings were freezing because her landlady had had no heating put in. She then spontaneously asked if I fancied taking her in as a lodger, seeing as I had a half-empty house. I agreed, and her rent enabled me to pay the mortgage, saving me from homelessness. How random is that? The ex-neighbour I barely knew, that particular night, that time of year, because if it had been warm, the conversation would never have happened. That barmaid, that weird place she'd applied for an interview at. Can you see how in a million years you couldn't plan something like that? I couldn't see how I was going to save myself from homelessness. It looked impossible, but that's because all I could see was how much money I had coming in, and it wasn't enough. But there's another important element that made all the pieces of that story fit. When the ex-neighbour came to my door that rainy November night and asked if I fancied going for a beer with him, I almost said no. I couldn't afford beer. But some nudge inside me, which I listened to, said, say yes. That was a breadcrumb. I followed it. The universe kept laying the trail, and 24 hours later, my life changed, and I no longer had to worry about how to pay the mortgage. You have to tune in to what I can only call gut instinct. If it feels good, go and ask Mrs. Jones about her cat, or accept the neighbour's invitation to go to the pub. I'm not talking about the social etiquette here. It's none of my business about Mrs. Jones's cat isn't the message to listen to. There's nothing wrong with being a good neighbour. When you follow one breadcrumb, the universe will then reveal the next one, and so on. You will almost never be able to see the whole trail in one go. It's like not being able to see round corners. That doesn't stop you travelling, and it doesn't stop you believing that there will be a way. I've told clients and friends of mine to print this on a t-shirt. There's always a way, even if I don't know what it is yet. Now, I promised you instant manifesting, but not magic tricks. I did not say that your big house would appear out of a puff of purple smoke. The material things, even big things like houses, cars, and even people, can show up remarkably fast. A few days sometimes, but sometimes it takes a little longer. I find that when it takes longer, it's because I've tried to take over and run the show again. But what will happen instantly, as soon as you shush your mind, is that those breadcrumbs will start revealing themselves. Things will occur to you. Sometimes you may have to sleep on it, and for some people, it takes a bit of practice to quieten their mind. But we can all do this. You are not your thoughts, but the thoughts you latch onto and the ones you believe will become your reality, which usually means you're limiting your reality. When you have the urge to desire something, let the universe do the work. If you'd like more of my quirky ideas about the law of attraction and how to make it easy to manifest, check out my Kindle book, The Law of Attraction Decoded. There's a link in the description where you can find that as well as other things I've written and recorded. Thank you so much for watching. If this video has been of value to you, please take a moment to like it, and also if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to post them below this video, including ideas for topics you'd like me to make videos about. I'll see you very soon in another video.